Knowledge is power. That's what I say. Is it's not about scaring you or making you intimidated to even join the industry. It's making you prepared so that if and when you do come into it, you know what your rights are. Because unfortunately, there are too many people out there who are taking advantage of the lack of awareness.
Hello, and welcome back to the Drama Coach podcast. Today, I'm joined by Alexa Morden, actor, writer, coach, and the host of the 98% podcast. Alexa's spent years speaking honestly about the realities of being a working actor, from rejection and resilience to representation, confidence, money, mental health, and life between the jobs. I really wanted to have this conversation today because getting an agent can feel like the ultimate goal for emerging actors. There can be so much pressure to get signed, say yes quickly, or accept whatever is offered. But representation should not be about fear, desperation, or handing over control of your career. So today, Alexa and I are talking about what a healthy agent relationship can look like, the red flags actors and parents should know about, the questions it's reasonable to ask, and how to stay grounded when you're applying, waiting, comparing, or feeling left behind. We also talk about the emotional side of representation, not getting signed, being dropped, or realizing an agent relationship is not working. So let's get straight into it and welcome Alexa.
Yay, thank you. What a great intro.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. I'm super excited for this episode.
Yes,
I've chatted to you before for your episode, which I absolutely loved. Thank you for having me on the 98%. The podcast has crept up many times already in my podcast and with lots of guests. So yes, it's an honor to have you here today.
Yay.
I know how passionate you are about this and about keeping actors safe. We've been in touch recently trying to keep actors safe with various things that have come up in the industry. But could you start telling the listeners, if they don't know you already, and I'm sure a lot do, a little about your own acting journey and how the 98% podcast came about?
Yes, there's so much I could say about the 98%, but because of your audience and sort of the focus on parents and child actors, I'm going to streamline it towards that point. So
Brilliant.
I started the 98% with one of my now best friends, Katie, in 2018, because we were just bored of only hearing from famous actors and knowing that everything we were watching on Graham Norton's couch was just not relatable to the majority of our friends down the pub or the actors you bump into on the tube and say, oh, what have you been up to? And we're all desperately trying to validate ourselves with bookings and auditions when 98% of actors aren't in full-time acting work, hence the name, the 98%. We gave a voice to the sometimes harsh realities of being an actor. And that was a big thing as well, is we would have conversations that most would shy away from because we're feeling pressured as actors that we have to appear booked and busy all of the time. So that's sort of where the 98% started. But it came from the fact that I've wanted to be an actor since I was 3. And unlike lots of the people that will be listening to this podcast, I didn't enter into the industry as a child professional. I did a bit of, extra work here and there, but my parents, we decided to just keep it as a hobby, something to learn and something to grow with. And looking back, I'm really glad about that decision, as much as I would have loved to be Hermione and Emma Watson stolen a career from me. But yeah, so I, did all the drama clubs, all the plays, took a gap year, worked 3 jobs to save money, auditioned for drama school, got in, went, didn't have a great time, left with no confidence, and then went looking for my, self-value as an actor from an industry. And spoiler, you're never going to find validation as an actor from this industry. And so that was also part of the 98%, is helping actors understand that we are successful and worthy and, have a voice, whether or not we are on the red carpets or at big premieres or being stopped for autographs. So that's where the conversation started, giving a voice to the reality of being an actor, and where I am now in terms of being a founding director of a community interest company and being at the center of investigations into wrongdoing, and all of that came from this platform being a place where people felt that they could be heard, listened to, supported, advised, And I was getting a lot of, messages through the years of abuse and misconduct and, the really dark stuff that doesn't usually have a light shone on it. And so the Bodhi talent scandal, which was this con artist agent, I was kind of in the middle of exposing and shutting that down. And then that just opened the floodgates because, and I'm sure we'll get to this industry is pretty much entirely unregulated. Anyone can say that they're anyone. And then because of the hierarchy of power, which is very dangerous, which leaves actors at the bottom, and actually I would say child actors and parents even, like below that, it leaves us vulnerable to exploitation because we're all, as you said in your intro, we're all so desperate to get that thing that we think is going to open the doors, that the fear we have of, speaking out about wrongdoing only enables these people. So through the years, I was getting messages from parents and I had to say, look, I'm sorry, I just don't have the remit to really focus on the child sector of this industry because I understood that it was a whole other beast. Equity won't even accept members under 10, but you've got children working from newborns, professionally.
Yeah.
And I was realizing that there was just nowhere for parents to go with actual tangible advice or resources that were honest and forthcoming. And last year, summer of 2025, again, I, with the help of women, mothers predominantly, looked into, exposed and shut down Lucy Harrison Casting, which was another fraudulent agency run by a couple who were using aliases and sister companies and stealing money and skimming money and not paying children. And, I think it was upwards of £250,000 they got away with in terms of loans and stealing from clients and all of that. And that is what really opened my eyes to the child sector because this agency had a lot of younger clients. And I was seeing that parents are even more vulnerable than actors because lots of parents themselves don't have any industry experience. Whereas actors, we learn about the industry as we go, or we go to drama school, we learn things. Parents, it's sort of like, where do they go for advice? And sometimes the people they go to, the focus of this episode talking about agents, unfortunately, with the lack of regulation, there's no way to say that anyone can be more trustworthy than anyone else. And so that really opened my eyes. And then from there, I have heard so many horror stories that would never happen in adult acting that is only happening with children because of the vulnerability of parents and the fear and the intimidation and the lack of knowledge and the lack of awareness. And so that's why I'm here, talking specifically for parents and children, is we have to protect children. This industry is dangerous. It is. And if you're coming into it with just blinders on of I want to make my kids' hopes and dreams come true and I don't care what I have to do to get there, you could be putting your child in a more precarious situation than not having them in this industry to begin with. I think that's the long and short of it, of how I'm here now.
Thank you. No, you've really tailored it to sort of what we want to cover in this episode. And although I don't want to terrify parents, I do want to warn them. And like we said, we wanted this episode to be agent red flags. And that's what we're going to talk about. Those things that you can look out for and you can avoid, and perhaps the things you should be looking for. So yeah, don't freak out yet, parents. Stick with us because we've got lots of advice.
Knowledge is power.
Yes.
That's what I say.
Absolutely.
It's not about scaring you or making you intimidated to even join the industry. It's making you prepared so that if and when you do come into it, you know what your rights are. Because unfortunately, there are too many people out there who are taking advantage of the lack of awareness and, just the yes people that actors and parents can be. So it's not to scare anyone. And I also have, naysayers sometimes say, oh, you're so negative. We should be celebrating this industry. This industry is celebrated enough, albeit it's only the 0.03% of the 2% in all these, fancy awards or whatever. But by ignoring the problem, it's only going to get worse and it's going to leave more people vulnerable. So it's not about scaring you. It's about making you aware that this stuff is happening and what can you do to make it as least likely as possible that it happens to you.
And like you said, knowledge is power. So I'm hoping that this is going to be empowering. And there'll be lots by the end of this episode that you can take away and think, yes, or when you see it or when you feel it, you will know it. Because you're so right. There are so many parents who are just thrust into this because their little child wants to act or perform. And goodness, where do they go? Hence why I started this podcast, in the hope that Lacey and I are doing it now. I've been sort of guiding her through for the last few years, that hopefully we can get all of these fabulous guests on and shed some light and give some tips and some help and some guiding along this path. So let's talk about getting an agent. Why does it seem like such a huge milestone or this piece of validation? I remember getting my first agent and feeling really chuffed. It was something to celebrate. And also my next one after that. Why? Why do we feel that as actors?
I think generally for actors, it's that validation, isn't it? It's someone sees something in me, someone thinks I'm good enough, as confident and, as much as we love attention as actors, a lot of us are deeply insecure. And, having someone say, yes, I believe in you, I want to help you achieve your goals in this industry is great. For children, it's slightly different because you can't be on spotlight without an agent, rightly so. You should be able to have that sort of legal protection and stuff. So it kind of becomes this hurdle or this hoop you have to jump through, that if you want your child to be pursuing this professionally, you need to have representation. And that can leave some parents vulnerable to just saying yes to anyone just to be able to tick that box to then get on spotlight. But side note, spotlight isn't the be all and end all, especially now. It's incredibly oversaturated. And there are agents out there, you don't have to be on spotlight. It's actually illegal for agents to require you to be on spotlight, in terms of they can't require any paid for service, and that includes spotlight. So already red flag number one, if an agent is saying you must be on spotlight for us to represent you, yes, we understand that in the industry that's kind of a given, but technically they can't require you to pay for anything. So that's why getting an agent is a big thing, because also they are perceived to be these gatekeepers of the keeper of the keys to getting you in the room. And whether that is accurate or not, for children, again, it kind of is, because you want to be able to have that protection of, this is the only industry really where child labor is still not only allowed, but encouraged, with incredibly low pay and long hours and all that.
So what are the risks that come with a parent and or child or young actor? We've got teen actors and early 20s actors listening as well. What's the risks of approaching representation with this sort of fear or panic? I must get one as soon as possible. I can't possibly progress without them. What is the worry about going with that mindset?
That anyone in this country, the UK, can become an agent. Anyone overnight. It's very different. In the US, there is regulation. You need a license. I actually made some videos about this on the 98% Instagram of there are all these hoops you have to jump through. Again, rightly so. To get a license, a background check, you have to submit your biometrics to the FBI or whatever it is. Like, they make sure that if you are someone in charge of someone's money, in charge of someone's career, access to children's, materials and stuff, you need to be ticking these boxes to be able to do that. And therefore, if you do something criminal or unethical or immoral, your license will be revoked, and therefore you can't continue being an agent. In the UK, it's not like that at all. So agents are overseen by a government body that oversees all employment agencies, temp agencies. Shows how long I've been a creative. I don't know how many other types of agencies there are. So, if an agent is withholding money from you, for example, you can contact the Fair Work Agency. They can get involved, get your money back on, intervene, get things sorted. But then there's nothing then stopping that agent continuing. So I know of a child agent, there are many, but stealing money, who have been investigated by the government body, have been found to be stealing money, and are still stealing money and are still running their agency. Clients are none the wiser. When people try and speak out, it's, oh, well, I don't believe this, or I'm surprised. And again, this is probably a point that we'll get to. And that's sort of why with the 98%, where I can, raising awareness about this, because there's nothing actually stopping anyone from being an agent. So there are con artists running agencies. There are people with criminal convictions of fraud. There are abusers running agencies. There are people with, I had one person message me and say, my ex, who I'm going to court with for domestic violence, has just started an agency. It's like, there's just absolutely nothing stopping anyone that you and I tomorrow, Lisa, could go, should we start an agency?
Yeah, but
let's build a website.
At least we'd care about them and have some,
Well, I know.
I wouldn't worry about you or I starting an agency,
No,
but there are
and
people that
neither
I would. But yes, we could.
But
yes.
it shouldn't be that easy. And if you're found to be doing wrongdoing, you should be held to account. But there's none of that. So back to your question of what's the worry with just saying, oh, I just want any agent, is it feeds into this idea that having any agent is better than having no agent. And I say this to actors all the time. That is not the case. Yes, okay, if you're a child, you maybe can't work professionally or get on Spotlight without an agent. You can still apply to open calls or look out on social media and stuff. But I've spoken to parents who are in therapy, who have taken out loans to go to classes because they think that's what's going to get you rep. They've taken out credit cards for the same reason. Parents who are, had to go to civil claims court, who have been threatened by legal action, who feel intimidated, whose mental health, is in the gutter because of how they've been treated by agents. You can't tell me that having an agent is better than no agent if that's the experience that you're having. So I also want to say, I just want to take this opportunity to say that if you are a child or a young person, there is no rush. This industry isn't going anywhere. It's also incredibly oversaturated. There's this idea that if I get an agent, get on Spotlight, then I'll start booking jobs. The stats do not line up with that. You're more likely to sign up to Spotlight and not get a job for 3 years. So it's a really, really big step to go from a child going to their performing arts club on a weekend or, acting out musicals in their living room to making it a profession and making it a job. It's also, there are worries with that too of now, it's labor and there's pressure and it's all this external stuff. So I also want to say, you can come to it professionally at any time. You need to be enjoying it. And if it comes down to this stress of, I just need an agent, blah, 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 it sucks the joy out of it. So I say this because I'm also a coach, actors who are looking for representation. The most time that you're going to spend is on your research into these agencies. And that could take weeks. And if it takes weeks, fine, because you're doing your due diligence. But, I see stories of, oh, well, this agency has followed me on Instagram and DM'd and offered a representation. I accepted, and now they're not replying to my emails. They've had no meeting, no Zoom meeting, no contract, but it's just, an agent. That doesn't mean that they're a good agent. It doesn't mean that they're a legitimate agent. It doesn't mean that they even know what they're doing. Because again, the fact that anyone can become an agent, there's no understanding of business law. There's no understanding of running a company. So you could actually be with someone that is doing you a disservice to your career, but they've just got agent in their Instagram bio.
Very good points. Shall we flip it and see what a healthy agent relationship looks like? And I know we'll delve in more as to what we shouldn't be looking for.
Yes.
But let's think for a moment, because I'm sure we have had these in the past. What should a healthy relationship between an actor and an agent, or of course the actor and the parent and the agent, what should it feel like?
Great
ideally?
question, because I'm very privileged. I have only ever had amazing experiences with representation and representatives. Every agent I've had, I would work with again. And that is why I look at this so objectively. So when people look at me speaking out about stuff and, people try and say that I'm some disgruntled, bitter actor or whatever, it's like, I'm not doing this for any other reason than I want to help. And also, I haven't been personally slighted by agent malpractice. So I'm really coming at this from, I know what it should be like. Like even this week, I've been talking to a parent who had a real issue leaving their current agency for new rep. And they've touched base with me again and they've gone, oh my God, Alexa, it could have been like this the whole time. This agent replies to my emails. They give me advice. They're following up on things. I had no idea that this is what it could be like. So this is a great question because you shouldn't just accept things just because, that's the way it is. So what does a good relationship look like with your agent? Healthy communication. You should not be afraid. When your phone is ringing and it says your agent's name, your stomach shouldn't drop. You shouldn't be feeling anxious. Oh my God, what are they going to say? If you email them, message them, they should reply to you. It shouldn't be taking them weeks, months. They shouldn't be ignoring you, fobbing you off. Communication is key. Now, obviously, you shouldn't be WhatsApping them at 7 p.m. on a Saturday or sending them 10 self-tapes saying, can you help me pick one? But
yeah, it works both ways, doesn't it? Yeah, you want it.
You should be feeling that you are validated in any concerns, that you should have questions answered, because the good agents out there want you to ask questions. I did an episode with an agent and I said, how many times has a parent asked to see your DBS before signing with you? And she said, Alexa, in the decades I've been doing this, never. And I'll tell you what, parents will feel scared of asking because they'll think, oh, well, I don't want the agent to think I'm doubting or questioning them. But this agent I spoke to said, I wish parents
They'd
would
be
ask
proud
me.
to, surely. Yeah.
Because you know what that tells the agent? That you as the parent have got your head screwed on. You are looking for, legitimate, reputable representation. You want to make sure your child is safe, and you understand, the laws and the legalities around these sorts of working relationships. So ask questions. Again, I see in these Facebook groups, oh, I don't want to bother my agent, so I just wanted to ask here. Bother your agent. That's their job. Because the more knowledgeable and empowered and confident you feel and your child feels, the more likely you're going to book work, the better position they are in to find work for you. So they should be available to communicate with you when you need.
So you do, the better they do. Like it should be a balanced relationship.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Another thing, that's a good working relationship is that it's a relationship. It is a business, professional relationship, but it's a relationship. If someone in your life, a friend or a loved one or a family member, if you wouldn't accept them speaking to you a certain way or intimidating you or just treating you nastily, then why would you put up with it professionally? So you want to unlearn this hierarchy. The good agents and the good relationships are agents who understand that they are just a creative doing their job, and we as actors and performers and clients are just doing our job. We work together. There is no I'm big, you're small, I'm right, you're wrong, you do what I say. Okay, yes, I'll do anything that you say. It's an equal partnership. Agents couldn't do their job without us. They wouldn't be making money without us. So I don't know where this idea came in that we need to just roll over and do whatever an agent says. So, and also it's not that, for a good relationship, you need to be friends. But what I mean by that is the representation that I have now in North America and the UK, they're also human beings that I relate to and I like, and I have good conversations with about feminism or TV programs that we watch or, the stuff that I deal with the 98% in the industry, their support of that. You want to have a bit of banter, or you just want to have a nice time in this professional relationship. So, yeah, and the obvious ones, what does a good relationship look like? Having a contract. Oh my God, I speak to parents who say they signed to agencies without even signing a contract. That is absurd. Contracts are there to protect you and the agent. If you're not signing anything, they could come anytime and tell you any clause or anything that you've supposedly agreed to. You want everything above board. You want them to be following the law, like paying you within 10 days, not 10 working days, 10 days. Yeah, understanding how to run an agency properly. They aren't blurring the lines, crossing boundaries. And there are so many agents out there that are great and wonderful. And it is possible to find that. You don't need to settle just so that you can tick that box of representation. Does that answer the question?
Yes, definitely. And I'd like to touch on something that we kind of brought in at the beginning. We talked about oversaturated, spotlight, etc. How can a client, so whether this be a child or a teenager or the parent, how can they tell the difference between a quiet period and their agent kind of not getting them any work? Is it a quiet period, or is it what can they do? I know my opinion and things that I've done, but in your opinion, what can they do to ascertain the difference, and what can they do about it?
Great question. And this segues perfectly from what I was just saying, is talk to your agent. I've noticed things are a bit quiet. Is there anything that I can be doing to help with that? Not just, why haven't I got a tape in a while? You want to meet them where you're at. I've signed up my daughter to a new class. Do you think they need new headshots? Is there anything that we can be doing to sort of push the needle here? Often you will hear back, no, it's just really quiet, or no, you're in an oversaturated casting bracket. But your agent should be replying. They should be putting you at ease. Now, again, I have a lot of agent friends. I'm going to flip to the other side and say, you shouldn't be messaging every week saying, why haven't we had a self-tape? Why haven't we had a self-tape? Why, but you want to have conversations. They should be open and responsive and advise. And if it is just a quiet spell, take the pressure off. Like when the pandemic happened, I know there will be lots of children now that wouldn't be in this profession before the pandemic, but it forced me as an actor to go, what am I going to do with my life? Like, the industry is totally shut down. You can't control when the industry is quiet. So do they want to learn a new monologue and put it on tape for fun? Do they want to join a new dance class? Do they want to do nothing to do with acting at all for the whole of summer and just let this child have a childhood, you know, their 9th year as a child, having a summer, the only 9th year as a child summer that they'll ever have, you know? When it comes down to, you know, agent not getting work, I know different people have different opinions on this. I am of the opinion that these child agencies who have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, I've even heard rumors of up to 1,000 clients, and they're also pushing kids to do modeling and extra work. And to me, that comes down to, okay, this agency just wants to make as much money as possible, because there is no adult agent that would ever say, oh, well, if things are quiet, have you thought about extra work? Have you thought about modeling? No, like that just doesn't happen with adults. So that's one of those examples that sort of happens with kids because it's sort of seen as more normal. If you are with an agency that has hundreds of clients, even if they do have a bigger team, there's likely not that personal relationship. So you are just being subbed with everyone else in your casting bracket. But if you go for a smaller roster, you know, a more boutique style, or someone that has a relationship with their clients, agents understand that there might be 2 children that maybe look the same, but they are totally different in terms of their vibe and how they approach a character and the goals that they have in this industry. One might really want to do screen, the other might want to do musicals, the other might just want to do commercials for the money, whatever. Agents who have 30 kids in the same casting bracket aren't going to know, well, Lily does gymnastics, but Rosie does swimming, and Lucas does karate, but Gerald does chess, you know, so...
Love a Gerald.
Yeah, it's sometimes you can get lost in the mix. And then again, this is another red flag. There's sometimes favoritism with the bigger agencies. So if you feel like you aren't being pushed or you aren't being sort of personally invested in, it might be because you aren't. Because these agencies that have so many kids, that's not really their priority. It's just sort of sub as many people. You throw stuff at the wall, one of them will stick, hopefully. And then, you know, they've got the booking that they're sort of after. Does that answer the question?
That's really good. Yeah, and I had a point to bring up with you about the sort of bigger isn't necessarily better, and I think you've covered that there. And it depends where your child's starting from as well. So my next big chunk is that diving into, we've covered some already, but diving into these agent red flags, for want of a very overused term. What are these warning signs that actors and parents, other than ones you've mentioned already, what should they be looking out for? What is sort of immediate concern for you with things that you see or hear?
I've been thinking about what to sort of zone in on this, because I could talk for the next 3 hours about red flags. And in fact, in this new series that I'm doing, which you were a guest on, I'm going to dedicate a whole episode to agent red flags, and I'm just going to sit and go through all of them. So if you want to deep dive on that, do check that out. I've also got resources on the 98%'s website of agent red flags. I've also got rogue agent red flags, because there's a difference between legitimate agencies that are breaking the law and acting immorally, and then actual rogue agents who are out and out con artists who don't actually care about agenting and they're just using it as a way to make money. So I've got a bunch of resources on that. What I kind of want to first off start to say, because this is what I'm noticing post-pandemic and also in this new world of everyone being online, is the use of social media. An agent being very active on social media doesn't mean that they are better or have better connections or have more bookings. And I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. And I don't also want anyone to think that I'm calling out anyone in particular, because I'm really not, because there's a bunch of agencies that do this. But for example, agents posting every single time a client gets a self-tape, that's a red flag to me. You can argue that you're celebrating your client's successes, but that's not your success to celebrate. That's the actors. I would die of embarrassment if my agent posted my a thing on Instagram saying, good luck to Alexa who's got an in-person casting today. I don't want people knowing that I'm likely not going to book this job, because the statistics show that you more often don't. I don't want people I don't know asking for the outcome, or, you know, by all means, bookings, absolutely. But an agent getting a client an audition is them doing their job. It's not some big thing that we all need to celebrate and, isn't this agent amazing because they're getting their clients in the room? Okay, well done for doing the bare minimum, I guess, which is your job as an agent. I think sometimes parents also get caught up in, well, this agent posted this kid on this job, but they didn't post my kid on this job. Like, why are they doing
comparison.
that? Yeah, I have a whole thing, and I have an episode on this too. I don't think children should be on social media at all, but I won't get into that now. But in terms of agents' use of social media...
Well, in the UK, they might not be. They've just had themselves, but that doesn't stop parent-manager accounts, of course. But yeah.
But it's this thing of, I'm noticing that some agents are treating their agencies like a business. And I understand that technically they are running a business. But what I mean by that is, if I was running a hair and makeup business, for example, and I was wanting to sell products, I would, post every time someone bought a product, or I would, get people to review my products, or, say, I want to sell this because I want to sell something. Agencies aren't selling a product. Like, technically clients, like, they're setting them up for work. But this idea of agents using social media to advertise that their business is like better than other people's is a real red flag to me, because isn't the proof in the pudding? Like, my agent friends, a couple of whom are, I would say, top agents, are actually the quietest on social media. Because they're so busy doing the proper agent work, they don't have time to be posting on Instagram every time their client gets a self-tape. They are also aware their job as an agent is a background job. So this idea of agents wanting to be like Simon Cowell and making videos and, giving advice in forums, like, I understand. But if you're an agent spending all day in forums giving advice to try and make it look like you're sort of this guru that everyone can come to, it's like, where's the time being spent actually submitting clients, watching self-tapes, giving feedback, working through contracts, negotiating pay, pushing certain clients to casting teams, keeping up your relationship with casting teams? Yeah, sometimes I think the most impressive agencies are very quiet on social media because they're not a business that they're trying to flog. Being an agent is a background job. Now, if you're someone that likes being in the limelight or posting, like, absolutely, it's great that agents want to share advice and make that accessible. But I think it just comes down to, if you are getting the vibe that this agency is trying to sell you something, whether that's literally classes or, advice sessions. I mean, agents charging £75 for like a 45-minute Zoom on Spotlight to give advice is absolutely absurd to me. But it's like, I'm losing my train of thought because there's so much to say about this. But just be aware of, like, social media is not a reason to sign with an agent or, think that they're better than someone else. That's a big red flag. Now let's get to the legal stuff.
Okay.
Upfront fees are illegal. Technically, you can charge an upfront fee. Again, though, this does not happen in the adult sector. We are told as adult actors, anywhere you go, if an agency charges any sort of fee, run. They are a scam. It's viewed as a scam. Even though there are legitimate agencies out there charging fees, because technically you can, it's viewed as a scam. In the children's sector, it's a lot more common. Ask yourself why that is, because agents
the parents
know
pay, right?
that the parents will pay. The parents don't know any better. They think it's normal. I know of agents, again, hundreds of clients who are charging an yearly admin fee, and I've calculated they're making between £30,000 and £50,000 a year just from admin fees alone. Now, let me ask you this, Lisa. If you were not as lovely and moral as we were, and you were starting a children's agency, and you had the option of,
please.
50 grand a year, like, or not. So obviously,
if you didn't see it as wrong,
and you're gonna sign more clients, because the more clients you have, the more passive income you're making. And that tells me, are you even bothering doing the agent stuff that seriously if you can make that much money from admin fees alone? So again, I have a resource on my website, but the long and short of it is, if an agency is charging a fee, it cannot be a requirement, i.e. they cannot say, we will only sign you and start submitting you once you pay the fee. No, there needs to be a cooling off period of 30 days. Also, it can't be a requirement. So you as a parent can turn around and say, I know you said that you have a fee. I actually don't want to pay it. You have every right to do that. It cannot be a requirement. They also have to, so a reason that it is common in the children, industry, and I do understand this, is that safeguarding policies, and Spotlight even has this in a safeguarding policy, is that children should not be front facing. So random Joe blogs off the street shouldn't be able to go on a children's agency's website and click on a child's profile and see their Spotlight. Not every child agent adheres to that, but that's another story. So Some child agents will say, well, we need that fee because we have to make our own directory. We have to have a login for casting to view people. I understand that. But again, a lot of the time, I think this is just opportunistic. How much more money can we make by charging a fee? Let's do it. So if an agency is charging a fee, I would read up on the legalities around that. If they are not following the law, that's obviously
presumably
a red flag.
that's different for different countries, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know much
so
about...
most of our listeners are UK based, but there's some smatterings around other countries, which is very exciting. But yeah, always check and look it up.
Always check and ask yourself, okay, why are they charging a fee? Is this a small, one person led agency that does everything themselves and they need that admin fee to maybe bring in an IT tech person to help with the directory? Or is it an agency that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that is very easy to get into, that supposedly just signs anyone without even meeting you and they're charging a fee? Weigh that up. Also, again, red flags, legal stuff, as I've mentioned, paying within 10 days. An agent has no reason to hold on to the money. So this is another legal thing that I don't think parents understand. I actually didn't know this myself. By law, agents must have a separate client account. So they've got their business account for whatever expenses they have for their business, and they have a client account, the client being the actor. So this is how it works. Again, I've learned this from speaking to my great agent friends, child agent friends. Let's say I'm an agent and I've got little Lisa, baby Lisa, who's done a commercial job or something.
I would have loved that.
Yes, I will invoice that production for that job. And excuse me, I will invoice that production for that job, and then I will then get a PO number so that when the money lands in my account, it's got that PO number and I can match that PO number to the one that they gave me. So I know, okay, this money is for little Lisa. I'm going to take my commission out and send the money straight on. If an agent holds on to that money in that client account for longer than 10 days, again, not 10 working days, 10 days, they are breaking the law. I have agent friends who said, Alexa, I will send money to clients late on a Friday night just to get it done, because what's the point of keeping it in my account when I can't keep it for more than 10 days? As soon as it comes in, it goes straight out again. So when you have agents saying, sorry, we're having cash flow issues, huge red flag. Why are there Why are there cash flow issues when the money comes in and goes directly out to that person again? If you're telling me that you're having cash flow issues, then I'm going to assume that you're paying someone off with someone else's money because you've been dipping into the pot, spending it on other things, using it yourself and going, oh, I'll pay them off in a couple months when this big Nike commercial buyout comes. And then the person who did the Nike commercial, I'll just wait a bit for another big job. And then this is what happens with these agencies, and is that it all backs up. People are then experiencing withheld pay. Another thing I've heard of is agents keeping hold of the money because then they gain interest on it. So then they're keeping the interest. That's not their money to gain interest on. So if you're waiting, and I know people say, oh, we did a commercial 3 months ago and we haven't been paid. Generally, agents will invoice for day rates to be paid within 30 days. At a push, it might be 60 for the day rate. For commercials, for a buyout for a commercial, for example, that can take longer because you might not even be featured, or there might be production delays and it hasn't been released yet. But if you have seen your commercial online or on TV or whatever, and you haven't been paid the buyout, it's time to ask some questions. If you are being ignored, fobbed off, intimidated, if it's in your contract that you are forbidden to reach out directly to casting or production, that's a huge red flag, because what are they trying to hide? Because I've spoken to casting directors who say, oh my God, if you're not being paid by your agent, please let us know. We want to know that. We don't want to work with people who are not abiding by the law. So if you're feeling like you can't ask questions, you can't find out where your money's going, again, the good agents, the good relationship will reply and say, no, I'm sorry, I've been chasing this. This is what they've said. I'm going to check back in on Monday. I'll let you know. They should be proactive. If you're feeling fobbed off, I would say that's a red flag. And then I have a resource on my website which breaks down steps to take if you're experiencing withheld pay, how to get your money back. You have every right to do whatever you need to do to get your money, because it's your money. So yeah, the 10-day payment thing is huge. Another red flag is, are you being intimidated? I know I've touched on this before, but I've heard stories of parents posting in Facebook groups saying, I'm concerned, I haven't heard back from my agent, or we haven't been paid. What do we do? And then this agent has figured out who this person is and DM'd them and said, if you don't take that down, I'm going to sue you for defamation. Sorry? Like, that's a huge red flag, because if it was just a mistake, again, the agents who were my friends would say, I would be mortified, Alexa. I would go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I've dropped the ball here. Like, I'm so sorry you felt the need to post in this Facebook group. If you're posting something for advice, the agent figures out who you are and then they're threatening you, huge red flag. They are clearly covering something up. And again, with this money stuff and the, upfront fee, if they're not acting within the law, if they're lying about this, if they're breaking the law about this, what else could they be hiding? I know stories of, as I've said, child agents outright keeping buyouts and re-air fees. So what they'll do is they'll pay you the first buyout, but let's say 6 months to a year later, that production says, dear agent, we would like to re-air this commercial. We're going to pay you again. And sometimes the fee might increase. And that agent says, yeah, great. They're then, again, going to invoice, get the PO number and get that money. So if you are, and this is based on a true story, if you're a parent and you've heard from another parent on a shoot your kid did, and they say, oh my God, isn't it great that we got the buyout again? And you say, sorry, I had no idea that we were getting the buyout again. Red flag. If you're then asking your agent, and everyone else on that commercial has been paid with other agents and you haven't, red flag. It's just so, there's just so much to this. And double dipping is another one. So if you're seeing that a production is paying, so let's say your fee is £5,000, oftentimes the agent will take out a percentage for their commission and you'll get just under £5,000 or whatever it is. Sometimes, graciously, the production will pay an agency fee so that you as the actor get to keep the full £5,000 and the production pays the agent's commission as sort of a separate fee. There are some agents out there who, what is known as double dipping, that will take that production fee and take commission, so they're making double the commission. So you need to be getting a remittance. This brings me on to another red flag. If you're not getting remittances, again, by law, you should always have a paper trail. You should not be having random deposits, into your bank with no paper trail, not knowing what it's from. You shouldn't be being paid half now, a bit later, and then a bit a couple weeks later. You shouldn't be being told, our finance person is off on holiday, you'll get paid during the next payment cycle. No. Contracts and, agencies saying we pay quarterly doesn't negate the law. Like, contracts don't override law, otherwise what's the point of law? So Absolutely. With a remittance, you should be getting your bank details, the agent's business details, the VAT details, if that's applicable. You should be seeing the commission that they've taken. You should be seeing the total that the agent was paid and the total you're paid, minus their commission, any other fees. You should see the date that the production paid your agent and the date that you've received the money so that you can make sure that it was within that 10-day period. If you're not getting a remittance or a paper trail when you're getting paid, not only is that a red flag, that's bad admin. That's an agent not doing their job properly. That's arguably one of the most important parts of being an agent, is managing that money and making sure that it's being sent to the right person at the right time. If they can't do that properly, what else are they dropping the ball on? I could go on and on. Is that enough for now?
That's great for now. I just want to make some things clear, because I tried to help somebody out chasing their agent for a payment. And you mentioned, it shouldn't be staggered or things like that. But you also mentioned before about day rates and buyouts for commercials. Am I correct in thinking that you could well get your day rates quite quickly because you've done the job, but the buyout could come much later, like you said, depending on how much you're featured, when it airs, etc. So it's not a worry to get two separate amounts
for commercials
at different times. Just wanted
definitely
to double check that.
Do take a lot longer. But what I would say to parents is keep in touch with other parents with different agencies from the shoot and keep in touch. Because
build
again,
that network. That's the safety in numbers.
Exactly. We are strong. There's more of us than them. It's.
This episode is supported by Scene Tribe, a new industry network for creatives built around your credits, your collaborations, and the work that you've actually done. If you're ready to be found by the right people, head to scenetribe.com. Right, back to the episode.
There's an agency out there at the moment that have been payment concerns about this agency dating back years. I want to say 5+ years. And I'm trying to get the evidence to help people. And parents just they don't want to. And it's like, why are you scared? I mean, this is another thing that I want to talk about, just the fear. But I mean, that's a red
my
flag.
next
I've already
point as well.
Yeah, is if you're scared.
Is being intimidated.
Yeah, keep in touch with other parents, keep on top of it. And unfortunately, this isn't me again. I don't want to scare you. I don't want you to distrust your agent, but I also don't want you to trust them blindly. Read your contracts. You should always get a contract for the job. I'm hearing of people turning up on commercial sets having not seen the contract for the job. How do you know what your fee is? How do you know if there's an AI clause? How do you know if the re-air fee from a year on from now is going to be more? Because there are stories of agents keeping re-air fees outright, doctoring contracts, telling parents, oh, the buyout is $4,000, meanwhile it's $8,000, but because they didn't see a contract, the agent keeps the other half and the parent is none the wiser. So ask questions, stay on top of things, start a spreadsheet, keep a paper trail. Like, this is a business. You know, this is a business and you need to stay on top of it. And, and unfortunately, we're just not in a situation where we can just trust implicitly. Recall fees, those are few. I heard from a parent, I thought the recall fee was for the agent. And the agent had never told the parent, no, it's yours. And they've kept hundreds and hundreds of pounds in recall fees. So yeah, it is stay on top of the money stuff. Read your contract, read up on the laws and legislation. And if the agency's contract tries to go against any of the law, that would be another big red flag to me.
Absolutely. And you touched on there this sort of idea of intimidation, being dismissive, being controlling, inappropriate, difficult to contact, all of that. We just sort of flip right back to the beginning of your conversation saying this is a type of relationship. It should be even, you know, none of those things are even and equal, are they? That's a horrible way to be feeling. You, your child, nobody should be feeling any of those things from their agent.
Literally after this episode, I'm going and recording a video for social media about this, because I've kind of been tearing my hair out the past week, because I'm having parents message me and say, I just thought I'd share my experience at this agency for context in case it helps.
Yeah.
Insert diabolical horror story here. And then I reply and I say, oh my God, this is really in line with other reports I'm having. Let me help you. Can you please send me this contract? Can you please send me this tape that you think is fake? Are you okay? Can I take your testimony? Can I anonymize it to you? No. We don't want, I don't want to be involved. I just thought I'd give you this information if it's helpful. Okay, it's not helpful if all you're doing is keeping me up at night, tearing my hair out. Like, how is this happening? And I'm going to say something really bold and blunt.
Okay.
Your fear, parents, is putting your children at risk. Your fear is enabling bad practice. This isn't me victim blaming, because if you are genuinely fearful or have been intimidated, I understand that you're not going to want to stick your head above the parapet and make an Instagram video like I do calling out people. But that's also not what I'm expecting. If someone like me is coming to you and saying, I can help you, I can help seek consequences for this behavior, but I as a third party can't do anything with my thoughts and opinions because I haven't actually been affected. I need those who have been affected with evidence, with firsthand experience to help. And by you turning a blind eye and going, no, I don't want to help, you're saying two things. You're saying, well, I'm fine for you, Alexa, to get 5 legal threats in the past year and, you know, sever relationships with, certain industry people that are wrong-uns, or be on people's blacklists, or have people on online anonymous forums slander me because I've, said something that they've done wrong. So you're basically saying you're fine with me doing the hard work. And you're also saying you're fine with what you've experienced to happen to someone else.
That would be my bugbear, would be, gosh, I could help somebody if I shared this.
Yes.
Yeah. But
and
it's so difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
You have to look at it as well is who is benefiting from this culture of silence? The perpetrators. Because the amount of parents that I've spoken to who feel so disempowered and intimidated and fearful and scared, that is going to pass on to your kid. And they are going to maybe say yes to things that they shouldn't, or turn a blind eye to things that they shouldn't. But also, you are disempowered as a parent. And then I've spoken to parents who I've helped support them and empowered them, and they've made reports and they've got their money back, or they've helped, with my investigations. And they've messaged me after and they've said, Alexa, the biggest thing you've done for me hasn't been getting the money or whatever. It's been finding my strength again. And I just want to thank you for that. I have not had a single parent that has gone on the record for articles or helped me investigate or, shared evidence with me. I've never had a single parent come back to me and say, I regret doing that. I'm in a worse position now. It's in fact been the opposite, because when you work through that fear and you come out on the other side, just like I did with the 98%, honestly, if I can be who I am now, anyone can, because I was so desperate, such a yes person, so disempowered. And it's going to do better for you once you come through the other side, you see things for what they are and you go, God, why was I so scared? Like, I was enabling this behavior with my fear, because these agents I don't even call them agents. If you're
that's almost offensive to an actual agent.
Exactly.
I see what you're doing, because
if you're
they're not all like that. There's great agents out there.
If you're stealing money from children and sending fake tapes and legally requiring them to go to your class in order to be considered for representation, or charging astronomical fees for residential schools or workshops or whatever, and then through that all you're acting unlawfully, I'm not going to give you the legitimacy of calling you an agent. You're an opportunist. So what I say to parents is, don't look at these agents as agents. Look at them as people that have a different job description as you. And if you wouldn't put up with this from, a cleaner that comes into your house and steals money from your piggy bank, why on earth are you putting up with it from someone, in a professional situation? It's really, really dangerous. There's a conspiracy of silence. And when I say that the children's sector is a whole different beast and is even worse than the adults, the reason is because parents are too easy to take advantage of, because they are so desperate for their kid to make it, even though I don't think making it is a thing. And they are so intimidated, and they buy into this idea of, like, no one can blacklist you. This idea of, well, I just don't want to make things difficult for my child. I don't want to affect their career. Let me tell you something. If an agent goes around to try and blacklist a child, that person on the receiving end is going to go, what on earth are you doing? Like, that says a lot more about the person who's spreading this than it says about the kid.
They should be doing their job, not busy doing that.
Exactly. I had an agent who was unhappy with the fact that I mentioned, payment issues, even though I was very, very fair in my posts. Call around industry organizations crying, saying I'm aggressive and I'm a bully and I'm trying to ruin their, livelihood or whatever. Those people then came to me and said, Alexa, this person has said this about you. What's going on? Okay, well, here's all the evidence of crime that's been going on. If anyone dared to actually try and badmouth you, whether you're an adult or a child, that just says more about them and actually further proves your point and your position. Yes. We can not eradicate, but we can work to eradicate this epidemic of taking advantage of the hierarchy if we find our voice, if we work together and we say that we're not okay with this, not for my own children and not for anyone else's children. Because the only reason that these people, and I'm not going to say have this power because it's perceived power. The only way that these people have perceived power is because you give it to them. And if you see them as just a person doing a job just like anyone else, you can see through the smoke and mirrors, because that's what a lot of them do, is they play into this smoke and mirrors. Of course, the agents that have something to hide are going to let on that if you leave them or post about your experience or, go on record with it, that's going to affect your career. Of course they're going to, tout that, because they benefit from that. They benefit from the silence that fear creates. And God, I spoke to one parent recently who left one dodgy agency.
Please tell me they didn't go to another. No.
Went to another one and then was messaging me about a dodgy headshot photographer and something. And I'm like, this just shows that you throw a stone in this industry and it's going to hit 5 dodgy people. Like, these really aren't isolated incidents. And I say that all the time. For every agency that you see sort of outed for bad practice, I could tell you 10 more. So it's not just about, people who don't like what I say will say, oh, she just tries to tear people down. She wants to take them down. No, I don't. I want to help people.
Illegal. I don't
care about. Yeah. I'm not on some sharpening my pitchfork. Let's go after this. But what
because
I do
that doesn't benefit you, right?
No.
Like
and what I do see is exploitation of children. And horrific. I'm not comfortable with seeing children being exploited. So let's talk about this. But every time I do talk about a person, I say, this isn't about them. It's not about they're gone now, issue over, because other agencies are doing the same thing. And not only that, but they are seeing agencies get away with this stuff, and they're going, oh, well, if they can get away with it, I can. You know, if they can remain on spotlight after sending fake tapes, well, then what have I got to be afraid of? If they can continue running classes while illegally requiring people to, you know, to join them, then I can do that too. So there's also a whole other argument, which I won't even get into now, in terms of industry negligence of the people with the power to maybe do something can't, or feel like they can't, or like to say that they can't. So really it does come down to us, everyone. We have to work together. Speaking of the fear and the intimidation that people feel, when people do speak out, please believe them. Please, like, don't, this whole thing of, I'm seeing it now, you know, people post on Facebook groups and people go, oh, well, I've never had this experience. Oh, this really surprises me. No, I can't believe this. Okay, first of all, two things can be true at one time.
Yes. Yeah, you can have a different experience.
You can have a different experience. If you've had nothing but a wonderful experience with someone, that doesn't negate the fact that someone else has had a terrible experience. And also, if someone is brave enough to stick their head above the parapet and feels that something has happened that is worth warning other people about, what they don't need to hear is, this is really surprising to hear. Yeah, because it is surprising to hear, because these people who, and I have a whole resource on my website as well about narcissists, because this industry attracts a lot of narcissists. They know to treat different people differently. So that's another thing. If you are a disempowered yes parent who just want to be on the agent's good side, you're more likely going to be taken advantage of, because these sorts of people can
multiple
smell
times
the desperation on you.
Yeah,
exactly. So when people do speak out about it, just sit with that discomfort a moment. And if it makes you go, no, this can't be true, just sit with that and go, what if it is true and I've been duped? And if this happened to me, set aside what I think this agent is. If this happened to me and I felt the need to share this with others, what would be helpful and what would be unhelpful? You know, yes, there are gossipy things, and especially with like anonymous forums online, people can say something, it can be misconstrued, it can be taken out of context, it can, you know, be embellished or whatever. But what I say is there's no smoke without fire. Like, if there's really serious concerns being raised, or you're hearing this name again and again, but, well, on TikTok, they've got kids working in loads of stuff, or on Instagram, they audition with this, so they must be really good. But I do keep hearing them brought up in regards to this or that. There's no smoke without fire. And especially considering people generally are so afraid, why would they push through that fear if it wasn't for good reason? That was what I wanted to say.
Thank you. So if people have found themselves in one of these red flag agent situations, there's loads of resources, as you've said, on the 98% website. If they're listening to this, there are things they can go and do now if they've noticed those. But if they are reaching out to an agent, perhaps for the first time, or reaching out for a new agent, what are the kind of questions? You've already mentioned DBS. Can I see it, please? What are the kind of questions you might be asking if you've been offered a meeting, or perhaps to be on the books? What are the kind of things that we can ask to make sure and to keep us safe, and to perhaps not fall for one of these red flag agencies?
Obviously, ask, see a contract, then ask questions. If there's a clause that you don't understand, if there's a clause that doesn't quite match up with the law and legislation, ask questions. Again, if you ask a question, or if you push back on something that you don't think is right, the good agents are going to go, oh my God, thank you so much for flagging that. Yeah, let me put your mind at ease. The agents I have questions about are going to assert their authority, make you feel like, you know, I'm the agent, how dare you question me? A great question to ask is, what do you see for my child? What sort of opportunities do you see for them? You know, you can talk about your goals. They specifically like screen, or they specifically like stage, or they really want to get into the West End. Another question to ask, really important, especially if you're new, if you have no idea how the industry works, what is the working life of a child actor like? You know, it might seem really great and exciting for your kid to be in Matilda, but they still have to go to school the next morning after getting home at midnight from a show. They still have to do their homework when they're doing however many shows a week. They still have to be handed off to a chaperone they might never have met before, and be in a room with adults that they've never met before. So ask, you know, how does it work? How does chaperoning work? What are the laws around licensing? anything. Like, you want to go, meetings with agents are not, how do I prove myself to the agent? Agents are busy people. If they're asking to meet with you, it's because they see something in you, and it's your opportunity to see if they are right for you, just as it is the other way around. So before you go to that meeting, jot down as many questions as you have. Maybe do some research. You don't want to waste their time asking, very obvious questions, but you want to make them tailored to your child. You also want to make them aware, do you have any holidays coming up? What are your boundaries? I did a great episode for this series for parents, and they were saying it's fine to have boundaries. Agents just want to know them. So, I'm vegan. I don't want to do commercials for Burger King or McDonald's. Are there certain brands that you wouldn't want your child to represent? Are there certain subject matters? Children are sometimes asked to do really difficult sort of subject matter. Are there things that you don't want to do? Saying no to things is totally fine. Just be upfront about why. How many tapes can we expect? That's a very difficult question to answer.
It's a piece of string kind of question.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
But if that's really something, do you have classes? Like, do you think my child needs extra training? Just any question that you have, really. And actually, you could ask them, what do you think of the 98%? Because their comment could be very telling. If they start...
Do you know what? I hadn't thought of that.
If they start slandering me, that tells you something. I've got a couple of agents...
You're on their radar.
Yeah, I've got a couple of agents
They're on your radar,
blocked me. Yeah, they've blocked me on Instagram, and I'm like...
Interesting.
That tells me something.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and again, if they're pushing back, if they're intimidated, if they're trying to assert their authority, that's a red flag. And again, coming back to the beginning of this conversation, if you have one meeting with an agent and you walk away and there's a feeling in your stomach that just says, I don't know about that, listen to that feeling. Wait. You don't need to sign right now, because as I said, you could be in a worse off position. Because also there are agents out there who don't read the brief properly, who get a tape for one actor, but then get 10 others to tape it and then send them all to the casting director just in hopes that one of them gets it. They submit kids for things that they aren't right for. That annoys casting directors.
Yes.
So sometimes having an agent that is wasting their time is worse than not having an agent, because then you're kind of...
Absolutely.
And also think about the word representation. They represent you. If there's something about them that doesn't feel right, that you don't agree with, why would you want them representing you?
Absolutely. I know we've talked a lot, and I know we can always talk a lot, but I would love to, if you've got time, Alexa, just take a moment to talk about being dropped or not getting signed, and how, if parents are experiencing this for the first time, or applying and not hearing back, or having an agent and then being told your child's not on the books anymore. Can you just give them some words of wisdom and uplift and love? Because I know that can be really hard.
Yeah, it is this industry. We are in a subjective industry. Things come down to people's opinions, whether that's an agent wanting to sign you in the first place, or a casting director wanting to invite you to audition, or a director asking, wanting you to book the role. I just auditioned for something recently. The director is a very, very dear friend of mine. I was perfect for the role, fit the casting. I had my own accommodation in that area, so they wouldn't have to pay me. I would cover my own travel to get there. Didn't get the role because the exec had a different vibe in mind. Okay. I ticked every single box, and I can't do anything about that. So one of my coaching ethos, and also I talk about it a lot in my book, Beyond the Spotlight, sort of inspired by my dad, who's a performance psychologist, is control the controllables. And when you ask yourself, can I control this? As an actor, most of the time the answer is no. Therefore, it's not worth your emotional energy. If you're dropped, if you're not getting interest from agents, that is disappointing. It's frustrating. It is not worthy of emotional despair, or questioning yourself, or internalizing self-doubt, or low self-esteem. It's just the way that this industry is. I got dropped from my agency that I signed with after drama school, and honestly, I saw myself with them for the longevity of my career, loved them. Got dropped during the pandemic because that's just, the things that were going on. I was living in a different country, no bad blood, but it's disappointing. But what can I do about that? So the main thing is it doesn't mean that you aren't good. It doesn't mean that you aren't good enough. It doesn't mean that you don't have anything to offer or your child doesn't have anything to offer. It's just, this is something that my agent friend Sarah says, it's like a big puzzle piece, whether that's an agency with their roster or director putting things together. You might be an amazing puzzle piece for this agency and just not the right puzzle piece for this one. Spend time doing your research. You want to make sure you're signing with someone that you genuinely like, and that can take a while to find. I spoke to an actor recently and she was like, I sent 100 representation emails in the past year. And it's like, that's just the way that this industry is. Setbacks do not mean that you're not worthwhile to be in this industry. It's just part and parcel of this industry. And honestly, if you're going to get upset and downtrodden by being dropped by an agent or not being rep by an agent, then maybe don't be in this industry because you know, this is
because there's going to be a lot more rejection.
And also, like, again, going back to sort of the horror stories, I've heard stories of agents taking on, you know, siblings, and then one sibling signs to a new agent, and then that agency goes, well, I don't want to rep the other one then. It's like, I mean, that's awful, but what can you do about that? It's just, you can ask them if you've been dropped, may I ask why? Is this anything to do with us? Because on the flip side, I've also heard stories about parents, you know, sharing NDA information, posting photos on social media when you've been told not to, posting auditions on social media when you've been told not to. You might be being dropped because
because of the parent. I've talked about this with a few guests. That I've not heard about it from an agency, but I can well imagine. But I've heard about it from other areas of the industry. It's because of the parent.
They probably won't share it because they want to remain professional. But I'll say it. So yeah, ask them, can you share a reason? And is there anything that you can do with that?
I suppose if you are dropped, you can say, okay, I appreciate, thanks for letting me know, but can you tell me why? Because you might need and want to know that moving forwards. Perhaps the parent does need to change their attitude. Perhaps the child needs to train more. Perhaps it's something they've just got too many similar kids on the books and now your child has gone into this age bracket or whatever. But I think, again, we said knowledge is power. So if you can politely ask for as much knowledge as you can get to move forward, I think that's the best thing you can do, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Brilliant. So finally, it is what I've just said, I think. We want parents to feel informed rather than panicked. And is there anything, before we do our little quick fire questions, that you wish had come up that we haven't covered?
Gosh. There's just so much. My only thing to say is follow the 98%. Because
there's so much.
There's a lot more to say on this. It's either already there or it will be there. You know, I've got, if you go to the-98, so the-98-percent.com on the education and resources page, there's so much to read. At the 98% pod on Instagram. Also my coaching at acting.with.alexa in terms of self-taping and auditioning and confidence and mindset. There's so many grifters out there trying to sell you things, trying to say, oh, if you do my course, I'll teach you this. Guarantee that this information is either on the 98% for free or is on Acting with Alexa for free. On my website, I've got free resources. I also offer accessible, affordable, I hope anyway, you know, one-to-one coaching. I've got my first youngest client, 5 years old, who's preparing to go into director me, and I'm really liking working with professional child actors, actually. So
it's really fun. I love it.
I guess that would maybe be one thing, is be aware of the grifters. This is something I talk a lot about on the 98%. Parents, you're going to feel that you are in a competitive industry. You're going to feel like you want to do anything you can to get your child ahead. Do not fall for these marketing social media ploys that make you feel that if you spend this much money that it will open all these doors. No one can guarantee you anything. No one can guarantee you anything. No. And that's why my niche with my coaching is, I'm not here to help you make it. I'm here to help your corner of this industry as enjoyable as possible. So yeah, just do your research, ask questions. There is actually one more thing I want to say. I've spoken about some agents, child agencies, and then I see people on forums or Facebook groups or social media ask parents questions about certain agencies of, I'm aware of the payment issues, or I'm aware that this has come up, and I don't think that, and I'm thinking, well, you haven't spoken to me. You've clearly spoken to the agent and heard their side of things. But of course they're going to say that it's a mistake or it's lies or that I've got my wires crossed or I haven't got it. Please reach out. I don't make any money from this. Yes, I've started it as a non-profit company. I'm trying to, get grants and stuff to really work. I want to change legislation. I want boots on the ground. Like, I want to make active change. But the only reason I do this is to help. If I have spoken about an agency and you're like, I don't believe that, like, please assume that I have barely given you the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And if you have questions or concerns, reach out, and I'm very happy to dispel any concerns.
You're very accessible as well. You're very easy to reach out to. So thank you for
I'll always
that.
send you a voice note back.
Yes.
And this is the thing is, another thing with me is I come with receipts. If I'm talking about someone publicly, I've got evidence, and there's a lot of people, things that I haven't spoken about because I could, but I have to be careful with, I am a third party. So if you've experienced wrongdoing and you want to take to social media and warn others, please, that would be amazing, because you have first-hand testimony. I am a third party. Technically, people can say hearsay, slander. So if I talk about something, it has to be solid. I have to be able to, because, as I said, I've been threatened with defamation many times. None of them have held out. Every post that I've made that people have said they want to take me to court remains up because it's in the public interest. It's true, and it can be evidenced. So yeah, ask me. I'm here. This is why I'm here. And just be aware of agents who maybe there are stuff out there about them, how they approach that, how they handle it, how they speak about it. Are they putting their hands up and owning to a mistake, or are they trying to slander me or misrepresent me? It just says a lot. Not to make this about me, but just because I am really the only person out there talking about specifically this sort of agent stuff that's going on, just because of the position I'm in, I've learned so much. Ask, talk to each other, listen, be curious, take some things with a pinch of salt, but also take other things seriously, and ask questions if you need to.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you mentioned where people can find you and your coaching. Is there anywhere else you want to direct people if they want to see more about your work?
My book, Beyond the Spotlight, was actually co-written by my dad. So, I write about 90% of it, lived experience, advice, but also he follows up with psychological expertise. And what's really interesting about that is he talks about raising me as someone who wanted to be an actor and how he helped with my confidence and resilience and my mindset. So that's what the book Beyond the Spotlight is about, how to survive and thrive in the real world of acting and performing arts. So it's not a book for children. Because I do touch on mental health and abuse of power and misconduct and stuff. But if you're a parent that really wants to be informed and empowered, and also you want to help your child with resilience, with mindset, with positivity, with being able to get back on the horse, after setbacks, please do read my book, Beyond the Spotlight. You can order it online at Waterstones. And please do leave a review on Amazon. Me and Dad love to read them. It's very exciting for the book to be out in the world. And yeah, there's just so much to say, but I think there's a lot out there that people can find if they're liking this sort of conversation.
Thank you so much. Let's do a little quick fire then, just to shake it off at the end. Okay, whatever pops to your head, Alexa, whether it's been covered or not.
These things are hard. Okay.
No, come on, you can totally do it.
Yes.
One quality every good agent relationship needs.
Communication.
One agent red flag actors should never ignore.
There's too many. Yeah. How they make you feel. I think it comes back to that intimidation thing. Yeah, how you should feel nothing but supported, empowered, inspired, invigorated, and loved by your agent.
That's beautiful. One question every actor should ask before signing.
Again, coming back to communication, what's your preferred communication style? Some agents like WhatsApp to, quickly be able to get hold of you. Some people prefer email. Some people prefer phone call. It differs person to person. So yeah, maybe being upfront about that.
Yes, I like that. And one piece of advice for somebody who's currently looking for representation.
Follow the 9 tips.
Yes. Great. Absolutely. Why not?
Listen to your gut. Listen to your gut. I think as actors, we are groomed to not listen to our instincts because, well, if you say no, someone else will. If you don't do this, there'll be 100 others who will. Our gut can be loud, especially women. We have a strong instinct for a reason. Listen to it, because the amount of actors and parents I've spoken to have said, I did have a feeling at the beginning, but I ignored it and I wish I just listened.
We've all done that about things in the past. I certainly have. And it's taken me a while to learn, not necessarily in the industry. It's taken me a while to learn to trust it. I knew that ages ago. Why didn't I tap in? Yeah, let's all tap in and trust our guts. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Alexa, for your time, your energy, your knowledge, your wisdom, and for taking time out and to share all of this with the Drama Coach podcast. I really appreciate it.
I also didn't even plug the actual podcast. You can listen to the 98% wherever you get podcasts. And there's over 100 episodes that will always be free to listen to.
Brilliant. And yes, I've been doing so for a while now, and I can absolutely testament. Really useful. Thank you so much. I'll tag that in the notes as well.
Yes.
I think what's come through so clearly today is that representation should be a professional partnership, not something built on fear, pressure, or the feeling that an actor should simply be grateful to have been chosen. Getting an agent can be an exciting and important step, but it's not the only measure of an actor's ability, progress, or potential. Actors and parents are allowed to ask questions, read contracts carefully, take time, check the details, and walk away when something does not feel right. And if you're currently looking for representation, waiting to hear back, or recovering from an agent relationship ending, that does not mean your career is over or that everybody else is moving ahead without you. Keep developing your craft, keep learning how the industry works, and keep making decisions from a place of information rather than panic. I hope this episode has helped. Please do share it with a young performer, parent, or actor who might benefit from hearing it. You can find me on socials at The Drama Coach for more acting tips, audition support, resources, and practical guidance for young performers and the people that are supporting them. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.